All right. Good evening, everybody. Here we have a repeat appearance from my very good friend, Rabbi Yossi Gordon. He's been here in his context as the director of Chabad on campus. He's been here and joined us in context of his trips to Ukraine, and he just returned from a trip to Poland. So, Rabbi Yossi Gordon, first of all, thank you so much. I'm sure you're jet lagged and tired and got 1,000 things to do, like everybody getting ready for Pesach. So we really, really appreciate you spending some time with us, and we promise not to keep you too late. So thank you, 1,000 thank yous for coming on.
My honor, delight, and pleasure to be able to join you and your community and to be a part of whatever it might be that you have going on here tonight.
And just to be clear, you're not driving, right? You don't have hands at 10 and 2 as you're doing this, right?
I'm actually driving in reverse an 18-wheeler and I'm towing a school bus.
Down in the center of Manhattan.
Oh, that's right. Exactly.
There you go. Okay. So you just returned from a trip called Living Links. Give us a little background. What is this trip about? And give us a little bit of the itinerary, if you would.
Living Links is a trip that is a Chabad on Campus international program, whereby we offer to students who are at a stage in their Jewish journey where it's the right thing for them, based upon their relationship with their Chabad house and with the rabbi and the rebbitzin of their Chabad house, and their own personal Jewish journey, to come with us on a trip to Poland. It's a very, very hard-hitting experience where they see what was and what is now and understand the tragic events that occurred there. And this way it becomes something that speaks to them and makes them realize the importance of their own lives as members of the Jewish people and how important their decisions are, and not only for themselves, but for the entire Jewish nation.
So give us a little framework. What is the age of these students? Where do they come from? They all from the United States? They're from Europe? They're from Australia? Give us a little bit of the makeup. How many kids came? What's their basic general age range? And where do they come from?
So we do four trips a year. And usually it's anywhere from 40 to 65 or 70 students per bus, per trip, depending on the interest of what's going on, depending on what else is happening in their lives. And usually it's mostly North Americans, but we don't have any, we don't only market this to North Americans. And we're not even really marketing this trip to many. And the reason is because even though it seems like we have 4 buses, 4 trips, it's, a couple of hundred people, but it's still not that much compared to the size of the marketplace. So we have to be very careful who we accept. And therefore, we're not encouraging everybody to apply because we'd be then disappointing so many people. So really, it's very, very important for the rabbis and the rebbitzins to suggest the application to those that are right for this sort of an experience. And these kids that come, these students that come, are in their college years. And that's the age group that we're seeking to influence. And they have with us a very, very powerful immersion experience, whereby they're 24 hours a day together with their peers, together with the team leadership that we bring along with us. And they're experiencing Judaism, they're experiencing camaraderie, friendship, community, learning, and as well, they're experiencing what it means to make decisions as far as their own future is concerned in a very clear way. And the conversations are very clear, very open, and very helpful to them to be able to understand the difference that they can make in their own lives and in the lives of their families and lives around them. And then the realization that comes from being in a place like Poland, which is literally soaked with Jewish blood, is that they are part of a great chain. They're part of a great chain. And none of us could ever bring back the losses, the tragic losses that we endured, the murders that were committed, the crimes that were committed. But what we can do is we can live ourselves today in a way that makes it so whereby the enemy that sought to destroy us loses, and we as a people are vibrant. And that is what it is that we seek to be able to achieve during these sorts of experiences. And I'll add this, and that is that it's not just Poland. It's not like we have this thing for Poland. It's any opportunity that we could find that makes sense, that we could be able to use as an opportunity to be able to help our students grow. So we'll have during the course of a year numerous what we call pagisha. Pagisha means a meeting. So there'll be one large one in New York, and then there'll be regional pagishas that will happen around the world. And every time there's a Pegisha, every time there's an opportunity to be able to have an immersion program where students can come together with strong, healthy, vibrant leadership, it's always something that comes out of it. They come out of it with a stronger commitment to living Jewishly, and it's beneficial to the Jewish people. The Jewish people are today. Everyone's sort of might think, oh well, we have a strong Israel. Where are Jews being persecuted for being Jews? But we all know that the vulnerability of the Jewish people is real. God Almighty protects us, and that's why we succeed, and that's why we flourish. The guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. But He wants us to do our part. And today, most of these students that we have in our communities are not coming from a home where there's a lot of open Judaism being practiced. Some of them have one Jewish grandparent. And it's important for us to give them every opportunity we can to help them discover who they are and for them to make the right decisions as far as their own personal lives are concerned through the lens of what it means to be a Jew. That was a long answer to a short question.
That's
Sorry.
a great answer. Is this men and women, just boys, just girls? What is the sort of makeup of it? Would you say it's 50-50? What just give us a feel for it.
It's obviously we have supervision, and we seek to just pardon the beep. We have supervision. It's men and women. It's a co-ed trip, boys and girls, but there's team leadership that's boys and girls, men and women as well. Often the team leaders are married couples, and this way we can have keep things at with a sense of modesty, and there's a lot of respect for individual privacy as well. So this way there's nothing there that makes anybody feel uncomfortable. And that's how we operate. That's how we operate during the course of the entire year. Every Chabad house on campus, wherever you go, if you go in the state of Illinois, any of the Chabad houses that are there, you'll see that everyone is treated in a very careful, comfortable, modest sort of way. And every individual is made to feel comfortable. And that's how we operate on these trips as well, the same way.
So give us a little bit of a rundown of the itinerary. When did you leave? Does everybody fly together? Just give us a feel, walk us through some of the steps from takeoff to touchdown and home.
So I personally was not together with the group the entire time. This is like my whatever it is, my fourth or fifth time that I've gone, and in the opportunity that I have to be of service to the Jewish people, the role that I have, I didn't exactly lead the trip in a way where I was instructing, but our team was able to fashion a very great itinerary where the students do meet together. Points of departure usually are either New York or Miami, only because those are two places where there's a lot of flights. And from there, they convene. First stop is Warsaw, which is a very interesting city. I'm not a tour guide, and I don't claim to be a Holocaust educator, but Warsaw has a lot of Jewish history, but not in a way that you'd expect, because the entire city practically was leveled during the war, and then it was rebuilt. But there are certain places that remained, certain buildings that remained, and there's pictures of the Jews being deported in a particular spot that was known to be the spot that they would be deported from. And the very building that's in that picture is still existing today. But instead of being able to be the building that it was then, and these poor souls that are being deported in front of it, it's today a building where people are just walking around and whatever they're doing, they're having their coffee break. So the Polish people have gone on. They're continuing to live their lives. The Jews see such a thing, and the Jewish consciousness, awakens, and suddenly I'm one of those people. I feel them. I understand them, and that's what it is that makes it such a powerful experience. And from there, we'll go to the cemetery in Warsaw, which the cemetery in Warsaw was not destroyed. I'm not exactly sure of the reason. I think it was probably because it was more convenient to our enemies to have the Jews bury their own than for them to have to deal with it. So in Warsaw, there weren't any of the concentration camps that later on became the style. Whatever the case, you go around that cemetery and you see hundreds of years of Jewish history. And along with that, you see tombstones that have bullet fragments that had been made little chips in the tombstone, because battles were fought there. No, those battles that were being fought, who were they shooting at? They were shooting at our people in the Jewish cemetery. And this is something that as well makes a person recognize and realize how, as much as a person might feel comfortable and safe, how vulnerable we are and how important who I am and as a Jew, who we are together as a people, our decisions are so important because this is the future that these people, many of them died for us, died for this future to be able to have for us. And of course, to continue that legacy is so important for us. So these are the things that we do in Warsaw. And there's a vibrant Chabad house in Warsaw today, which is really beautiful to see, with a wonderful minyan every day and a great opportunity. You go there, come in hungry, you leave well satisfied. And then the week begins. So there are various concentration camps that are some moderately preserved, some not at all preserved. Of course, the reason why they're not preserved is because the enemy, prior to their departure, tried to destroy the evidence of their crimes. So there are some concentration camps that are nothing more than just an open field, an open meadow with a Soviet era monument written in some sort of a backwards meaning, a way of saying something that doesn't really honor the Jewish people properly. But it doesn't mean anything to us anyways, because we're not honored by the monument, we're not made whole by the monument, and we're not bothered by the monument. We realize the truth of who we are without anyone's endorsement, without anyone telling us that this is who we think we need to be. So we go from site to site based upon the itinerary that we have. And some of the concentration camps are well preserved. And indeed, it's possible to visit in Magdanek and in Auschwitz and places like that, an actual gas chamber, an actual barrack, and to really and truly understand what it was that these people witnessed. Now, understand not what they experienced, because we can't, but what it was that went on there. The scope of it just boggles the mind, and it's hard to even grasp it. To be able to understand the scope of the crimes that were committed, it's impossible for, without, as far as I can see, I don't see how a human being, a single mind, is able to truly grasp the magnitude of what it was that occurred here. And the scholars that are seeking to be able to do so, I'm not sure what it is that they're able to achieve, because the magnitude of the crimes are so great and so undiscovered. As much as we might think we know, we don't really know, because there weren't any survivors to tell us. The few survivors that there were, Auschwitz had 100,000 inmates any day of the week. There were 7,000 that were liberated. So few were able to really truly come and tell us what it was. So the shoes that they collected, and there's an exhibit of shoes, thousands of pairs of shoes, thousands of pairs of glasses, thousands of suitcases that have on it written names of people and their phone number that they packed, thinking that they're going to be able to come one day and claim their property, and hair from people that they would bundle into a ponytail and then snip it off. All these different things are just a way of being able to recognize and see the magnitude of these crimes in order to be able to help us really and truly realize the importance of our decisions, who we are today, to keep this Jewish consciousness, this Jewish peoplehood strong and vibrant.
So here you have these young college students growing up in the United States. And look, we can all do the math. If a kid is 18, 20 years old, the likelihood of them knowing firsthand a Holocaust survivor is pretty low. I mean, we're a different generation. We grew up, everybody in their experience, new people saw it, numbers on the arm and so on. But these young men and women, 18, 19, 20 years old, what was their response? I'm sure they know about it intellectually. They've read about it. But to them, it's got to be somewhat of ancient history, not something that they saw. What are some of the responses that you've gotten from the students that you've taken?
So there's anecdotal responses, and then there's data points.
Give us the anecdotal.
The anecdotal stuff is everyone loves it. Everyone comes away, and it's always very nicely written and beautifully written notes that are sent to the team leadership and to our office. And there's a lot of gratitude and a lot of desire to try to commit to making sure that this is something that makes a difference in their lives going further. and they always take upon themselves many different wonderful resolutions, from decisions to engage in a mitzvah on a daily or weekly basis, to being of service to the Jewish people in some way that they can, to committing to dating Jewish, to committing to marrying Jewish, to committing to raising their families as Jews, to committing to standing up for Israel whenever the opportunity arises, to never standing down to an anti-Semite, to being proud of their own Judaism in a public way, to be able to ensure that they're never ashamed of who they are. All these sorts of wonderful commitments are made, and that's sort of like anecdotal. The data points at the end, we seek to measure certain things, not specifically for this group, but on an overall level, based upon what it is that we want to try to achieve when it comes to our relationships with our students. We want our students to feel that they're part of the Jewish people. We want them to be part of a community, value being part of a community at some level. We want them to feel that they're obligated and they have an obligation to the Jewish people to give tzedakah. We want them to have some measure of Jewish life in their homes. If it's a Shabbos meal, if it's a Passover Seder, to feel a certain sense of desire to want to conduct themselves in a Jewish way. We want them to make the right choices when it comes to their marriage partners, to marry Jewish. We want them to care about our beloved Israel, and we want them to not be intimidated by anti-Semitism. So these are the key points that we seek to instill in our students. So what happens is that from this sort of an experience, there's always a huge surge, at times 40, 50% more than it would be without, from having had such an experience.
Wow. Okay, Rabbi, we don't want to keep you much longer. We know you must be jet lagged. If anyone wants to quickly unmute themselves and jump in with a question, we'll give you an opportunity for that. And Rabbi, if you could leave us with maybe an impression that you had from this trip or from a previous trip, and then, of course, how do people find out about the next trip if they have somebody who they think would benefit from this? Who do they contact? How do they find out any more information? And again, if anybody wants to unmute and jump in with a question, we'll keep the Rabbi another couple of minutes, and then we'll let him go. So a thought or
let me answer
reflection?
you. I'm going to answer your first question, your second question first, and that is that this is not a. I'll be very open with you, Rabbi Epstein. We know each other for a very long time.
I can't go.
We're not tour operators. We're not seeking to bring people on trips that are seeking to find a way to explore Poland. When there's a relationship in a Chabad house between a student and the rabbi or the rebbitzin, and the conversations that they have make it clear to the rabbi and the rebbitzin that this student is at a place in their lives that this will be helpful to them, then that student should apply.
Okay.
So that's how it is. That's what this trip is meant to be. As far as my personal reflections, I can share this, and that is that this year is an interesting year for me because I'm saying Kaddish this year. And in my family, we do things, we do it, always a little bit, as much as we can. So I'm saying Kaddish for both of my parents simultaneously. And then just to make sure that it's as much as it can be, Hashem should spare us from any further pain. My father and mother were not married. They were divorced. And my father got married to a fine woman, and they were married for 27 years, and she passed away too. So I have 3 that I'm serving every day, Kaddish, 3 times a day. So during one of our excursions, I needed to daven mincha. It was getting dark. So I took a couple of students with me, and a couple of the people that were there with me, some donors were there, and we went on the side of the freight car that's in Auschwitz. On the rail line, there's a freight car that was placed there specifically to be able to give people an understanding as to what it might have been for people that came on such a freight car. And I started Ashrei, and I began Ashrei, and then I finished Ashrei, and I began the first Kaddish, which is said right before Shemona Esrei. And I was expecting to hear the Amen behind me that I would normally hear. I heard a resounding Amen. Suddenly, I turned around. Voluntarily, all of our kids came over to daven mincha. And they felt a certain sense of, they felt a certain need, to me it seems, to connect with each other and connect with Hashem. They wanted to connect with God Almighty. They wanted to be beyond They wanted to be able to be out of that space and out of that nightmare, but yet be there as they are, a proud Jew. In this way, they would some way be able to help the environment, help themselves, and help the Jewish people by virtue of saying Amen to a Kaddish, not recited for the sake of a person that was there that's coming to recite Kaddish for mourning for someone that they had lost there, but saying Kaddish. I'm saying Kaddish for my mourning. I'm in mourning for the people that I'm saying Kaddish for, who died during recent times. But they were answering Kaddish and answering Amen to the blessings as a means of Jewish observance, of powerful Jewish observance, unashamed Jewish observance. And they did it in a public way. And there's a lot of people that come there. There's 2 million people that come to Auschwitz every year. That's thousands of people a day. And they did this, our kids did this naturally, without being told this is a good idea to do. They just automatically, their soul came alive and it brought them there.
Am Yisrael Chai. Beautiful.
Indeed.
Rabbi, thank you so much. Thank you for taking this time. I'm sure you're exhausted emotionally, physically, and spiritually from this trip.
I'm not exhausted, Rabbi Epstein.
You're
Come
inspired.
On, you know.
Well, you still need to get some sleep.
Did you ever tell your community about Super Bacher?
We'll save that for some other time.
Okay, very well then. Thank you.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Okay,
we'll see you tomorrow night for Mimer. Thank you, Rabbi. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Am Yisrael Chai.